Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Justin Caton. I serve as the Associate Pastor of Families and Students here at Thorsby First Baptist Church. Now, Thorsby is in Alabama. It's right in the center of the state in a county called Chilton County. You have Birmingham, you have Montgomery, and Chilton County is right in the center. And Thorsby is a small rural community there in Chilton County. We have a little over 2,000 people in our entire town. We have 2 traffic lights. At Thorsby High School, we have 800 plus, around 800 total people there. So literally the whole town goes to the high school while school is in session. And so a little context about our church as well. We may have around 200 on a good Sunday, maybe a little bit over 200 people on a good Sunday. That's babies all the way to our oldest person in the room. And then like our student ministry, we have roughly around 65, 70 students on a Wednesday night. On a Sunday morning or Sunday school hour, we'll have around 40. And so I say all that not to throw numbers out. I say all that to say, like, just here's context, because sometimes I'll hear people talk and I'm like, yeah, you can do stuff like that because you have 75,000 people in your church. And so I want to give you a little context of where we're at. So maybe there's some people in the room that's very similar, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. Nonetheless, these are practical things that we're going to talk about today that I think you can implement in your student ministry tomorrow, or at least start praying through. And so my role today is to equip you. Now look, I don't have all this figured out. I am a train wreck, a dumpster fire, and I feel like some days I'm taking 10 steps forward and 75 steps backwards. You know what I'm saying? Some days I just look in the mirror and I'm like, why do I even do what I do? Why am I even a student pastor? But you know what? God's got this whole thing rigged for His glory, and He is doing some incredible things. I know not just in my church, but I know He's doing it in your church as well. Sometimes we just got to be still and look for it and see how He's moving in our ministry, in our church, in our families, and things like that. So kind of set it up a little bit. I hate to go back to this point, but COVID really changed everything, right? I remember talking to our leadership about how we were going to take a Sunday off. And I just couldn't imagine how we're going to take a Sunday off. How are we going to do that? We did services where only certain people were allowed in the building. I didn't know how to upload to YouTube. I had no clue how to do a Facebook Live, how to post to Instagram, any of those things like Instagram stories or none of that stuff, right? Our internet here was so bad that it would take a full 24 hours, if not longer, to upload a sermon to YouTube. It was just such a train wreck, right? But I also learned a lot about how I'm not doing a very good job of being a student pastor. Now, sometimes some people say, look, you're just fishing for a compliment. And I'm not doing that. I literally learned in this season that, man, I'm not doing the best job. I thought I was doing a really good job, but that's what it's all about, right? We learn how to do things, and it's when we deal with adversity, how do we come back from that, or how are we going to be different from that? And so there was things that I learned over our quarantine that I was like, man, we've got to figure out how to do a better job of, because obviously the way that we're doing it is not working. And so there's 3 things that we changed coming out of COVID, and I hope that it may equip you, inspire you, maybe something that you're already doing, and during our discussion at the end of this, you can have conversations about how you're doing this currently, and maybe everyone in the room can learn something and we can take something home from us really practical today. So 3 things, and then we'll get into it. 3 things that we learned coming out of COVID. Number 1, I learned to develop and equip a leadership team. Develop and equip a leadership team. We are greater than I. Now, before COVID, our student ministry was running around 30, maybe 40 was a really good number for us. But once everyone went into quarantine and nothing was going on, we were actually, because we're a smaller community and we're a rural community, we were able to kind of come back a little bit faster. Now, I think you can kind of understand the context where I'm at. COVID was not a real thing, all right? That's the kind of town I live in, all right? COVID ain't real. And so we actually were able to come back a little bit faster than maybe some of the bigger cities, than maybe some of the other areas. And so we actually kind of got things rolling. There's nothing to do in Thorsby anyways. And so we had a lot of non-church kids starting to come to church. Our ratio on a student ministry. Like we have a lot of kids that come to church here on a Wednesday night, but they may go with their grandparents on a Sunday morning, or they may go somewhere else on Sunday morning because that's where their family goes, but their church doesn't have a student ministry or anything like that. So that, again, that's another kind of context of where we are. And so we just started getting students to come. So we went from, when we left COVID, we kind of had a lot of momentum going. We came back, and man, we had more students than we knew what to do with. And that sounds really awesome when you're not able to build relationships. You don't know their names. I mean, we were not ready for that. And so we started praying. I know it sounds like a shocker. We started praying and saying, God, I need a team of people. Now, me and my wife, we could lead around 30 people. Probably not very well, but we could do it. But we could not lead 60 people. We could not love 60 people. We could not equip 60 folks. All right. So what we did, we just simply started praying. We prayed and we fasted, and we were asking God to give us 12 people. Very, very specific in what we were saying. God, I feel like for us to do our student ministry and do it well, we need 12 people. So we started praying, we started fasting, and I would look at people and I would say, hey, I would go up to people, and I learned this from Larry Lawrence, my good buddy Larry Lawrence. I would look at people, and they were at the games on Friday nights. They were at the volleyball games. They were supporting the high school. They were always supporting the kids, right? And I'd go to them and was like, hey, you're already here. Would you like to come over on a Wednesday night and maybe help serve or help hold a sign, welcoming and being a smiling face as students walk in the building? Or hey, would you consider maybe discipling a couple of our guys or some of our ladies, and just putting the ball in their court and then letting the Holy Spirit work in that way? Now, some people said no. Some people would come back to me and go, you know what? The Lord was already dealing me with that, and by you saying that just confirms. So we don't ever know what God's really doing on the outside, right? He's always working. But we developed a team of people. And here I want to take it a step further, right? God did give us 12 people to serve in our student ministry, right? So on a Wednesday night, we've got people, we're all in different stations. We got some people working the check-in station. We've got signs that just say, welcome, or you belong here. And so they're standing out in the front door, just being a smiling face. We've got some people who are serving food. We have food on Wednesday night, so we have people who are serving food. And then we have people just stationed around the room, walking around, just getting to know people, saying hello, welcoming guests, all that kind of stuff, right? To go a little bit farther than that, though, just using them on Wednesday nights, I want to equip them to lead very well, right? Bear Bryant was quoted. There was a guy who was there at the press conference and was talking and in a way kind of bragging on Bear Bryant, talking about how well he did at coaching players. And Bear Bryant stopped him and said, hey, look, I'm going to have to stop you right there because I don't coach players, I coach coaches. And I remember hearing that quote and thinking, man, that's a little bit different than what we've always heard, right? Like as a student pastor, I'm to invest in students. But here's the thing, I can't reach all these students, so I need to give my ministry away. If you're not there on a Wednesday night, if you're not there on a Sunday, can your student ministry still function because you're not there? Because you've given your ministry away to so many people that they can lead well. And that's a pride statement in a way, because we may take pride in what we do. But our student ministry is so much better because we've given our ministry away, and it's so awesome, right? And so we've got adults now who are not just serving food, but they're actually discipling our students. They're discipling our younger guys, our older guys, all the ladies. Like it's a beautiful thing. And honestly, as a leader, I spend probably more time investing in my adults than I do our students. Now, I'm still loving students. I'm still teaching. I'm still doing the work that I'm called to do. But I'm equipping them. So I'm keeping them accountable. I'm sending those text messages. Hey, how well are you abiding with Christ this week in our reading? I'm asking some of those hard, difficult questions with them, right? My wife is walking alongside of me, and she's having those conversations with our ladies as well. And so, something else too is we take I work this in our budget, and we do a retreat. I try to do at least 2 retreats a year. Sometimes we get one in, but I'm trying to figure out where we could do at least 2 retreats a year where I'm taking my adult team away. We're fortunate to have some different places that we can take them to, like different camps, like a 4-H camp, and something called Chaco Springs that's in Talladega. Some of those things that we're able to go, and it's affordable price where we can get our team together, and really we just get to spend time together. We get to love on each other, man, and encourage one another and cry with each other. But then also I'm asking them, because a lot of these adults leaders are also parents. So they're seeing things that I don't see as a student pastor. So they're able to speak into the ministry and say, hey, here's some things that I think we should think about doing. And I'm not that type of person that's not, says, hey, we can't do that. And so we have a lot of good, healthy conversation, but we've developed a friendship and a bond that we can speak into each other's life. And so some of my best friends are on this team, but also this team is not afraid to speak truth into my life and to say, hey, some of the things that we're doing, or hey, I see that we're doing it this way. What if we done it this way? Basically what I'm saying is, don't get a bunch of people on your team who are yes people. Get people on your team who are going to challenge you, make you think about it, make you say, man, I didn't think about it that way. So that's why it's so important, right? So we have other people. So a team. All that being said, have a team and also invest in that team. Give that team some of your time. Give that team and give them the opportunity to lead in your student ministry. Another thing that we learned is we simplified our teaching. Number 2, we simplified our teaching. Now, what are you talking about that? Well, what I learned in COVID, and this is it sounds really stupid now, but so I was teaching a YouTube video every week. I was posting on Wednesday nights, right? And I was teaching through the book of Colossians. Well, our Sunday school teacher was doing the same thing. He was posting videos, and he was teaching through another book of the Bible through Explore the Bible curriculum that Lifeway puts out. My pastor was teaching something else, like a whole nother sermon series. We were also challenging students to read something on the YouVersion app that had nothing to do with any of those things, right? And so I'm sitting there going, good grief, like, I can't keep up with this. I know our students are not keeping up with it, right? And you can look at them analytics on YouTube and you can realize ain't nobody watching your video. So anyway, we simplified our teaching, and here's what we did. We use the scope and sequence that Lifeway puts out through Explore the Bible. And I'm not a Lifeway rep, but they give you so many different things that I don't have time to come up with devotional questions. I don't have time to do a bunch of different things. And so I let other people do it who do a really good job at it. And so we use the scope and sequence that Explore the Bible does. It also challenges me to teach through things I don't maybe not normally would teach through. We taught through 1st and 2nd Kings. We just got through teaching through Amos, which was great. I don't know if I've ever even read the book of Amos before we even teaching it, right? So it was really good to teach through that. We're right now walking into Hosea. We did Jonah. Now we're walking into Hosea. So all that great stuff. So here's what a typical week looks like for us. All right. On Monday, students are reading, and we'll just say we'll use Hosea as an example. They're reading Hosea 1 through 3 all week. All right. So they may read 3 verses a day on Monday. 2 or 3 verses on Tuesday. They may skip over to chapter 2, chapter 3. So it's not going verse by verse, but it's kind of giving the major chunks of the scripture, right? So they're reading it for themselves. And again, this is the daily discipleship guide that Explore the Bible provides. We just send them the pack. We just send them the resource. So they're able to open it up on their phones and read it. We also print it out for them as well. They give it to them. On a Wednesday night, I'm teaching the same thing that they're reading. All right, so they're reading it. I'm teaching it on Wednesday night. Our Sunday school teacher on Sunday is doing the same thing. He's teaching the same passages of Scripture. But because it's someone different, I don't teach our student Sunday school class. But because it's somebody different, he's got different points. He's got different things he's talking about. He's got different discussion questions at the end. And so it's a little bit different. And then in the same time, our lead pastor is also teaching through the same thing. And so this coming Sunday, our lead pastor will teach through Hosea. He'll teach chapters 1 through 3 of Hosea this coming Sunday. Now, I know that might be a stretch. A lot of lead pastors kind of have their own thing, and they know what they're going to, they have the way that they want to do it, which is great. But something else that's really good is also our parents are learning about this as well. So they're getting Hosea in their Sunday school class too. And so we've simplified our reading to where we're not reading 500 different things during the week. We're reading Hosea chapter 1, 1 through 3, and everyone's on the same page, and they're hearing it multiple times. You guys know as much as I do. A student has to hear something almost 7 times, maybe even more now because of their TikTok brains. They have to hear something over and over and over again before something really clicks and something really processes, right? You guys know as much as I do, like when you go to a conference, you go to that winter retreat or that summer camp, and someone speaks and says this profound thing, and they come back to you and like, man, I never thought about God as love. And I'm like, dude, I've been teaching that every Wednesday night. You know what I'm saying? And so it's one of those, but again, it might have took you saying that 100 million times for them to actually hear it when they go to that camp and someone else to speak it, right? And so it's a process, but simplifying our teaching has been the best thing for us because it's giving our students something simple to read. And if they miss Monday, they've only missed 2 or 3 verses. I think at the most we've read is maybe around 10 verses. They can catch up and they don't feel like a failure because that's how a lot of my students are. They feel like failures. And so we're not giving them chapters to read. We're just giving them like 3 or 4 different verses or whatever the sermon sequence that Lifeway provides. So we simplified our reading. And then lastly, number 3, we invest in our families. Here's what I learned. I learned that in COVID, I was not doing a good job of investing in mom and dad, aunt, uncle, grandparent, legal guardian to disciple their kids well. And here's what I mean. I had a parent. We went to a conference. She was on our leadership team. We went to a volunteer conference. This was another one of those things that I was doing, investing in our adults and in our team. And while we were there, one of the speakers was talking about discipleship and investing in families. And she came up to me, and I don't think she knew that she kind of stabbed me in the heart, but she said, I've never been taught how to disciple my sons. I've never been taught. Like, I've heard preaching on it, but I've never been given resources and tools on how to disciple my family. And I sat back and I go, holy cow, like, what am I doing, right? And so, you know this as much as I do. I have a 6-year-old son, and he is the good, bad, and the ugly of me, And so, as a dad, I have so much influence over my family. In the same way with your kids, your student ministry, the students that are in your ministry, they are influenced by their parents or by the people that they live with, that they spend the most time with. For me, I'm only seeing them on a Sunday and on Wednesdays and maybe at their volleyball or basketball, football games, all that stuff, right? But I need to figure out ways that I can invest in my families and not just say, not just give them a sermon on you need to disciple your kids, right? Like I can do that really good. But how well am I actually giving them tools and giving them resources and saying, hey, here's how you use these tools to invest in your kids. And so just some things that we're doing right now. We do something called a Raising Arrows Conference. And this is put on by the leadership of our church. So our children's director is involved, our pastor, myself, other key leaders are involved. We'll do like breakout sessions. So there'll be a breakout session for preschool, breakout for elementary age, breakout for student ministry, and a breakout for empty nesting well, which is more for our college and some of those people who have kids. How do we empty nest well? And so again, that's the night. It's set up. We have a dinner. We have breakout sessions. We have worship. We have we bring in a keynote speaker to come and invest in our families. And again, the whole idea is about equipping our families to lead really well. And we're able, in those gatherings, in those breakout sessions, to really pinpoint things that we see in our student ministry or in our kids ministry that, hey, these are some issues that we need to be talking about. Like one of the things that we're discussing right now is, parents, how well are you having conversations with your kids about sex? And none of my parents are teaching students about sex. They're not talking about that stuff. And so what's happening is I've got students who are learning about it in the 4th, 5th, 6th grade. They're learning about it from someone in the locker room. They're talking about it. And so what we need our parents to lead that conversation, to talk about how it's a gift from God. I'm not going to start preaching here, but those are just examples of some of the breakout sessions that we're talking about. I do the marriage retreat at our church. And so I'm in charge of it. Again, my role is associate pastors of families and students. And so I am the student pastor, but I'm also in charge of families. And so I'm in charge of doing the marriage retreat. And so I pick the location, I pick the theme, I find the speaker, I plan the schedule. We have one coming up in February that we're going to be doing. And so, because here's the thing, if we have really good marriages, then we're going to have a really good student ministry. We'll have a really good kids ministry, right? And so think about how well are you equipping? What resources are you sending them? There is a really good resource that YM360 puts out. It's called Ministry to Parents. And it is a newsletter that goes out weekly. You can add it to your newsletter that you send out. And it's a great resource that has a lot of different things for different age groups. It's not just like one resource, but it's a resource that, hey, if I have a 7th grader, if I have an 8th grader, 9th grader, all the way to 12th grade, there's different resources for different ages. So that's called Ministry to Parents. It's Ministry to Parents. I think it's like physically the number 2, Ministry to Parents, and it's by YM360. And so think through those things. How well am I leading and equipping mom and dad, legal guardian, aunts, uncles, grandparents to lead their families really well? And so as we go into our discussion time, someone's going to come up and kind of guide the discussion time, but I want to hear from you. Well, actually, I'm not going to hear from you, but anyways, you know what I'm talking about. I want y'all to talk about this. Like, how well are you doing at having leaders in your ministry? Giving your ministry away where other people are leading really well? And how well are you investing in your leadership, your adult leadership? What about the simplicity of teaching? Are you teaching 5 different things during the week? Or is there some things that you're maybe even doing that's a little bit better, and you're seeing your students abiding with Christ more? You realize that, hey, our students, when they're graduating, they know Scripture more. And this is the tool that we're using. What scope and sequence are you using? We use Explore the Bible, but there might be something better that's out there. And then how well are you investing in families? I know it doesn't make sense maybe for the student pastor. Maybe you're at a certain age where you may say, I'm not married, or, hey, I'm not married, or I don't have kids. I can't lead these things. Don't underestimate the fact that God has put you in this church for this time in this season, all right? You may not have kids, you may not be married, but you can find people in your church who are, or God's given you those gifts and abilities for a purpose, so you can lead your families really well. He's made you that student pastor. And so what are some ways that you're investing in families in your church to lead well in their homes, right? What about a marriage retreat? What about a Raising Arrows conference? What's something else that you're doing really, really well? And so, hey, thank you so much for your time. I'm so thankful for John and SWAT and Thomas and the things that they're doing with this. I love these things, and looking forward to getting in Alabama soon. But thank you guys. Thank you, SWAT, for your investment in student pastors. And thank you, student pastors, for being here at this meeting. I think it shows that you are willing to learn. It shows that you're willing to say, hey, I don't have it all figured out, but I want to learn and equip and be able to do something, because at the end of the day, we're all wanting to invest in the kingdom, right? To see the kingdom of God advance. And so, again, thank you guys for being here. Hope something made sense. Feel free to reach out to me. They're going to give you my contact information, and feel free to reach out and tell me how terrible this was, or, hey, here's something you might could do better, or, hey, I was able to take this and do something with it. So, again, thank you for your time, guys. Hope you all have a great afternoon.